You know that jerk in your head that's always putting you down? Well, today it's time to figure out how to get it to shut up already. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel where you are what matters. Today I'm going to be talking about what you should do when you don't feel good enough. And remember, if you're interested in more videos about stress reduction, mental well-being, and productivity, go ahead down and hit the subscribe button below. We all have that little jerk or mean girl in our head that's always telling us that we're not good enough or thin enough or smart enough or whatever enough to do the thing that we want to do. The amount that inner jerk pipes up is different for each person, but if you let it happen often enough or constantly enough, then it's likely that negative thought pattern is going to become a habit. I've already talked about how to get rid of negative thought patterns, so if you find that you already have one, check out the cards. I'm going to link that video up, and you can start working on getting rid of the ones that you already have. Because today, I'm specifically going to be talking about how to deal with the not good enough thoughts before they become a habit. These thoughts happen at different times for different people, but there are a lot of common triggering situations where the thoughts will come up. One of the most common of these situations is any place where there's a chance that you might fail. If you've ever told yourself that you're not good enough or whatever enough to do something, it might have actually been your brain trying to protect you from the chance that you might fail at it. After all, if you never try something, you can never fail at it. Our brains have this very long history of having a serious fear of failure that goes back around 100,000 years. Back in the Stone Age, if you made a mistake or had a failure, there was a solid chance of death by a predator, by eating the wrong berry, or just by getting lost. Now, times have obviously changed significantly since then, but our brains haven't caught up yet. Now, if you get lost, you just pull out your phone and type in where you're going, and it tells you what you should do. There's little to no chance that you are going to get lost and have to spend the night in a jungle with no protection. But we're still hardwired to fear failure. This fear of failure can crop up in a whole bunch of different ways in our lives, but one of the most common is by becoming a perfectionist. Perfectionism is this really funny thing. As much as we'd like to believe that we could make something perfect, we just can't. Perfectionism is really just a way for us to cover up a fear of failure. Because if you keep working on it and working on it, working on it, then it will never be done. And if it's never done, then it can never be judged as a failure. But let's think about this for a second. Despite the fact that we are not able to make anything perfect, we've still done really amazing things. I mean, you carry a computer around with you in your pocket all day long that can do swift calculations, tell you the weather, tell you where you want to go, and really pretty much answer any question that you have. But it still crashes once in a while. It still does the wrong thing when it's not supposed to. And why? Because it was created by humans, and humans are not perfect. But what if those imperfect human beings weren't willing to release any of this amazing technology or programming because they wanted it to be perfect? We would never have any of the amazing advanced designs that we have today. If perfect's the yardstick that you're gonna go by, then nobody would ever do anything, and that would be awful. You probably don't judge others by this perfect yardstick, so don't be telling yourself that you are not good enough to try something. Having said all of that, if you feel like perfectionism is something that you're dealing with, then I'm going to link a video up in the cards that I did about it that has more of the psychology behind it and more tips about it, so that you can take a deeper dive into that and try to help yourself get past that perfectionism. The next mindset that leads to the not good enough thinking is focusing on what you don't have as opposed to what you do have. Being miserable in your current life or your current situation is so hard. I have been there. I had a job, I've had several jobs that were life-sucking. They were awful, and I hated them with the fire of 1,000 suns. I spent all of my time either escaping or sulking because of those jobs. Basically, when I wasn't at work, I was still miserable about work. It was consuming my life. And situations like these can actually lead you down the not good enough rabbit hole. Well, the real overall problem obviously was that I was miserable at my job. I started to get into the mindset that the reason that I was miserable because there was something wrong with me. Clearly, if I had this good job and everything was seemingly going in the right direction and I wasn't happy, that was my fault. It was this miserable little spiraling thought pattern that I would have. First, I would think, oh, I hate my job. And then I would say, well, I can't quit my job because I'm too far in debt. Well, why am I in debt? I'm in debt because I impulse spend, and I impulse spend because I don't have any self-control. And really, it just comes down to the fact that I'm a crappy person. Basically, not good enough to have a good job, so I should just suck it up and be miserable. What I didn't realize at the time is that all of this thinking about what I didn't have, a good job, was making me feel more inadequate and causing me to feel even less good enough. Oddly enough, what I really needed to do was accept where I was and think about all of the things that I was actually grateful for right now. This is the first part of acceptance, and I'm not gonna lie, it is the hardest part, but it is absolutely necessary. Think about it this way. You're in an underground parking garage and you want to bring up your map because you'd kind of like to know which way to turn once you get out of this place. But the GPS can't tell you how to do that because it doesn't know where you are. If you don't know where you are now, you can't figure out how to get where you wanted to go. If I can't accept where I am now, I can't make the situation any better. If I don't think about the fact that the truth of the matter is that I am in a miserable job with a bunch of debt, then I can't figure out what I need to do to get myself out of that life situation. Also, by just ignoring my life and being miserable all the time, I wasn't paying attention to all of the really great things that I had going for me. At the time, I was in a good house, I had a good car, I had a good boyfriend that eventually turned into my husband. It was a good situation, especially for someone that's in their mid-20s. But I was allowing that horrible job situation to completely overshadow all of the good things that were happening in my life. Focusing on gratitude actually changes your brain chemistry, and it will help you be able to focus on other things besides what's making you miserable. And if you can break free of that mindset, then you can start focusing on the things that you can do to actually change your situation. So start small. Just a quick gratitude journal. Just jot down 3 things that you were grateful for that day and spend a couple of minutes reflecting on those things. If you want to bump this up, you can then write down 3 behaviors that you did that day that you are proud of that you want to continue. Maybe you got up a half hour earlier so that you could have some you time before you got started on your day. Or maybe you drank water instead of having soda, or you went for a family walk instead of sitting around and watching TV. Every one of these tiny little redirections that send you in a more positive direction will lead you to good changes. The third situation where these not good enough feelings tend to crop up is with comparison. We have literally been keeping up with the Joneses since 1913 when it was a comic strip, but comparison goes way back to the beginnings of society. While there are actually some people that are motivated when they see somebody else that has something that they want, but a lot of us just feel defeated when we compare ourselves to someone else and find out that we're the ones that come up short. Plus, now we have social media, so we don't just compare ourselves to our neighbors or people we see at work. We're comparing ourselves to pretty much the entire world's population, and we have access to that 24 hours a day. Seriously, no matter how good you feel about something that you just accomplished or that you achieved, you can hop on social media right now and find a whole bunch of people that seem to be doing something way cooler than you are. And that is going to make you feel not good enough. First, let's be real. Major accomplishments take a lot of time. They were achieved by these people because all of their time and effort. The thing is here that a lot of those people that have had those achievements actually wish that they had time and energy for other things too. I mean, they might really love their job and what they managed to accomplish, but they also might miss spending time with their family. Or maybe they feel really awesome about their gym gains, but they're pretty sick of spending hours and hours in the gym and meal prepping. Just remember that for every one of these great things that you're seeing on social media, there's probably some sort of downside to it that they're just not going to show you. We don't generally document the really miserable days. You're basically seeing their highlight reel, all of their accomplishments and none of the work, all of the good, but rarely any of the bad. So take it all with a very, very large grain of salt. The other part of this to remember is that the pond that you are comparing yourself to is always changing. For example, let's say that you start up trying to do something new today. You usually have the understanding that you're going to be in the largest pool with all of the beginners, the people that also have absolutely no experience with this new thing. And you will also understand that the tiny pool of experts is kind of far away and that they've probably been working at this for quite some time. But then you get into the middle part and you start making progress. Now you're not a brand new blogger with no posts. You've got some content on your page. You have now moved up to a different pond. And then maybe you get to do a guest post. So now you're in with a different pond of fish. And those fish, maybe they've already done a whole bunch of guest posts. Before, when you were in the pond full of people that had just posted and you did your guest post and you compared yourself to them, you were feeling pretty good about yourself. But now that you're being lumped with another group of people that already does guest posts, you're starting to feel maybe not so good. And then maybe you have a couple of guest posts, and then maybe you get a book deal or a celebrity notices you or a magazine wants to do an interview. Each one of these things will then change the group of people that you're comparing yourself to. Because if you went back and compared all of these achievements that you had against a beginner, that wouldn't really be fair. Of course you would come out great. You are continuing to compare yourself to your peer group, but your peer group keeps changing. The thing is, though, that because your peer group continues to change and you continue to compare yourselves to other people, you're never really going to feel good enough because there's always going to be someone else that has accomplished more than you have. And really, you could go ahead and beat yourself up about this for pretty much forever. So instead of using these peer groups as a means of comparison to see how far that you have come, stay in your lane on this one and only compare yourself to how you were doing last week, last month, or last year. This last strategy is less about how the thoughts get triggered and more about how to get clarity on them. This will help you prevent this thought pattern from becoming a habit. We're in our heads 24/7, and even though what we think isn't always good and true, we still believe a lot of the things that come into our heads. But have you ever stood on a balcony of a tall building or on the edge of a cliff and had like just those 2 seconds where you thought, what if I jumped? Obviously, this thought is in no way a good idea, and it's probably not something that you would do. But this is how I like to think about those not good enough thoughts. Just because they run through your head does not mean that they have any validity or are even worth considering. So if you notice the not good enough thoughts running through your head, then stop for a minute and examine them. To help you figure out what's going on, take a minute and take a step back from the thoughts to help you figure out what's making them come up. A great way to do this is to imagine someone else saying them to you. No, not somebody that hates you, not even somebody that's neutral to you. Someone that has your absolute best interests at heart. For example, if you were to imagine your partner saying this thought to you, what would their motivation be for doing that? If you come up with that they wanted to be hurtful, then this thought is not something that you should be giving energy to. It is not serving you, and it's time to disregard it. you certainly should not have that thought on repeat in your head. However, if it seems like something that they're saying so that they might bring your attention to something, it might be worth digging into. For example, the reason that this works is because there was something that I used to do to myself all the time. I would constantly call myself lazy. Now, this has two sides because sometimes I really was being lazy in the sense that I was avoiding doing something that I didn't feel like doing. In a negative way, this was actually motivating myself to get myself to do the thing that I was avoiding. However, sometimes I would bust my butt all day long and then finally sit down, and somehow the I'm being lazy thought would crop up again. In both of these situations, I could use this mental distancing technique to figure out what was going on. If I thought of, say, my mom telling me that I was being lazy about this one thing, and that my first thought was to say, no, Mom, I just really don't feel like doing it, then I would know that the motivations behind that thought are really just an attempt to get me past my procrastination. But if I thought that she said that to me and my first response was, do you have any idea how much I did today? Then I would know that that thought is not serving me and that it's time to let that go. This will help make it clear why you're saying certain things to yourself. Now, I'm not saying that it's okay to go around calling yourselves names, and you should certainly work on rephrasing the things that you say to yourself. However, it will help you dig down deeper into the motivation behind the thoughts so that you can get down to the real reason why you might be telling yourself that you're not good enough. Question of the day: what is the not enough phrase that you say to yourself the most? Is it not good enough, not smart enough, not thin enough? I'd love to hear your responses down in the comments. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead down and hit the like button and also hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a video. If you're interested in more information about this topic, go ahead down to the show notes because I'll have a link to an article that I wrote about it, which gives you a lot more detail on this topic. Also, there'll be a link to my 5 Days to Less Stress program so that you can figure out all of the things that are stressing you out and how to get them off of your plate. And there'll be a link so that you can get on my schedule and have your free call so that you can figure out how life coaching with me can help you. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.